there in nonetheless Europe of his little neighborhood, and we're talking about the Netherlands. And of course, Carrie Cassidy of Project Camelot will soon be starting a show prior, so it'll be him, that'll be Carrie, that'll be myself on Friday. So you can get your popcorn and your beer, whatever you want, and join us on Fridays, and you'll be able to hear all about all these conspiracies. But nonetheless, we're not talking probably about conspiracy, but really the lies, apparently, we've been told. And
lies, and more lies. That's
more
what
lies.
Is. Yes.
So we're having to rewrite. We've had our books changed, and now we're trying to wake. And I think there's a lot of waking up going on too. So
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So go for it, Eli. And if you've got a spot you can pick up with, just take off.
Yeah. Well, you asked about the Blue Teutonic Army. I think that's probably a projection. That language projects upon the past, where I don't think they called themselves that in those days. But we were talking about the differences between and among the Sadducees, the Pharisees, and the Essenes. Okay, and the Essenes, according to Josephus, were the true Judahite sect, religious sect of the time. And the Pharisees were an Edomite sect empowered by Herod. I'm sorry, the Pharisees. And then the Sadducees were Hellenizers who started out as true Judahites, but had, I think in America today you could probably refer to the neocons as being Americans who have made a pact.
Sold out, huh? Sold out.
They're sellouts, okay, with the invaders, okay? And that's what the Sadducees were with respect to the Greeks, when the Greeks invaded, I think around 330. In fact, before I get into the Teutonic Army, there's a very interesting passage in Josephus about Alexander the Great, who invaded Palestine, or Judah at the time. It wasn't called Palestine. It was called Judah, the land of Judah. And he was getting ready to invade Jerusalem after he had finished with Tyre. Okay, he Tyre was the old Phoenicia. Okay, he wiped out the land stations that the Phoenicians had near Tyre, but the island proper, which was not far off the shore, but it was very difficult to attack because he didn't have a navy with him. He was an overland army. Okay, so what
Alexander,
he did, Alexander, and so he built a causeway.
Holy cow! Really?
Yeah, he had his soldiers build a causeway from the mainland to the island, and then he built a tower. Okay, he rolled the tower across the causeway, and it was high enough to go over the walls, and he invaded and he conquered Tyre that way. Okay.
Holy cow!
After he did that, and then he focused on Jerusalem, and as it turned out, he had a meeting with one of the temple priests, the high priest of the temple there, and the temple priest showed him the prophecies of the book of Daniel. Okay.
Now, is this a good guy or a bad guy, this priest?
He's a good guy. Yeah. No, we're talking about, this is before, 200 years before the days of John Hyrcanus, who was
so
your
it was before the
sellout.
infiltration. Yeah,
right.
Okay.
We're talking like 30 BC, okay? And so the high priest of the temple in Jerusalem showed Alexander the Great the prophecies in the book of Daniel, okay? And he recognized, because in the book of Daniel it talks about the Babylonians, and the Medes and Persians, and the Greeks. It predicts an invasion by the Greek army in the book of Daniel. Okay, so the Alexander was shown this prediction, and then he recognized himself as being the third beast of the book of Daniel. Okay. And
well, that doesn't go over too good, huh?
Well, actually, he was so impressed by this prophecy that he spared Jerusalem. He said, wow, this guy Daniel, he's really something else, And so he spared Jerusalem and went his way and, went points east. But the points east come into play in our discussion of the Teutonic Knights as well. Because later on, remember, last week we talked about the 12 tribes being taken captive by the Assyrians, and then escaping across the Caucasus mountain range and becoming known as the Anglo-Saxon Caucasian people. Okay, well, there was a branch of these tribes who stayed behind in Mesopotamia, and they were called later the Parthians. Okay. These Parthians had a very sophisticated cavalry. They wore chainmail. They had chainmail for their horses. Okay, and they had a fighting technique which the Romans could not defeat. So the Roman army, which came, of course, later, around 160 BC, had many pitched battles against the Parthians. These Parthians were actually Israelites.
Oh, okay.
They were Israelites.
So who was and the question that might be in some people's mind too, was who the heck is Alexandria? I mean, the Great.
Well, Alexander was also a descendant of the Israelite tribes. Okay. Because the Greeks and the Romans, as we discussed last week, and the Trojans, and the Brits and the Germans, Danes, Swedes, they're all descendants of the tribes of Israel. Okay. We have documented all this migratory history, okay? But the Parthians were the ones who stayed in Mesopotamia and did not migrate until very, very much later, okay? Alexander actually had pitched battles against the Parthians as well, but he could not defeat. He was the only general who was able to defeat a Parthian cavalry. And that's because he developed a strategy of hemming their horses up against either a river or against a valley, or against a mountainside. Okay, but other than that, he had a few victories against the Parthian cavalry. But other than those few victories, the Parthians always decimated the Greeks. And then the Parthians did the same to the Romans. Okay, but why don't we hear about these Parthians? Again, these have been eliminated from your history books.
I've never heard of them.
That's right. Like people never heard of the Khazars either. Because the Jews have written these things out of your history books. They don't want you to know the true history of those times. They don't want you to be able to tell the difference between a Shemite, who is a Hebrew and an Israelite, and a Canaanite that is a Jew. They have pretended to be Shemites. They have pretended to be Hebrews. They have pretended to be Israelites, okay, when in fact they are Canaanites and Khazars.
Which has implications geopolitically,
absolutely, and
prophetically.
Especially prophetically. Because if you confuse the Jews with the Israelites of the Bible, you will not understand the Bible, period.
So
you will simply not understand the Bible.
So if something bad is coming your way, and you don't know that it's your way that it's coming, I guess you could get in some deep doo-doo then.
That's right. Well, if you're assuming that the Battle of Armageddon is going to be staged in the Middle East when it's really going to be against the white Caucasian people, okay,
that's pretty scary.
Then you're looking in the wrong direction, aren't you?
And that's got to be done by a pretty good-sized army because there's a lot of them.
Yeah, let me just finish up so anyway, these Parthians. These Parthians, 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 okay, these were the original knights.
Oh, really?
They were the original knights, yes, and the Teutonic Knights of Europe are their direct descendants. They're actually Parthians, okay? And it was these Parthians who brought what we called the German language into Europe, because they stayed in Mesopotamia longer than any of the other tribes, okay? And they picked up the Syrian language. And if you listen to Syrian, it sounds just like German. Okay?
And explain to people where the Mesopotamian area would be.
Well, Mesopotamia would be, just south, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, just south of Armenia,
So we're talking about Iran, Iraq, or?
Yeah, to modern Iran, modern Iraq, Turkey, Eastern Turkey. Okay. That area south of the Black Sea